This video starts in 7, 6, 5. Okay, you get it. Hey, have you ever noticed those little numbers on the bottom of your plastic cup? Or maybe you've spotted this number on a plastic bag. Well, if you're anything like me, you've probably just assumed that every piece of plastic has a power level that they use to battle other pieces of plastic, and you also probably assumed every time you saw a broken piece of plastic, that was just a low power level plastic that probably just lost a battle. In my defense, I was 10 years old when I thought that. Eventually, I grew up and I learned obviously that's not true, and that those numbers actually mean that's how many times a piece of plastic can be recycled. Except that's not true either. But I know people that still think that. And honestly, it's valid. The 7 types of plastic were never directly taught here in the US. These numbers are basically just name tags. Each of the 7 types of plastic have their own names, unique properties, their own specific recycling process. Basically, each type of plastic has its own little quirky personality and character trait. Fundamentally though, they are all the same. Plastics are, you know what plastics are, plastic. Yes, that thing you're thinking of right now is made up of polymers. Polymers are uniform molecules that are smaller than plastic molecules that can be strung together to form plastic. Now, if that was the ugliest sentence you've ever heard in your life, essentially, polymers are the powerhouse of a plastic. I've made some edits here to help you further visualize this. Here, the characters of the show would be the 7 types of plastic, where the overall name of the show would be something like the Big Bang Polymer. Here we have some celebrities, and each of them would be a type of plastic, but this selfie would be known as the famous polymer selfie. Okay, I might have gotten a little carried away here. This one ended up being pretty on the nose. You get it. Plastic is just made of polymers, and to get a different type of plastic, you rearrange the polymer molecules in a different way. Why does this even matter though? Well, these numbers really only exist just to help recycling centers sort and process their recycling easier. Hence the giant recycling sign. And with the US being notoriously bad at recycling, well, let me say recycling plastic. We're really good at recycling paper though. We got that process locked down. I would even argue that we might be the best in the world at well, at least we made the top 5 according to data from 2019. Plastic on the other hand, not so hot, big guy. Oh, not so hot. I was basically born and raised here on the beach, and unfortunately these sands are no stranger to plastic. So let's actually do a little cleanup and see how many types of plastic we can find out on the beach today. Alright, would you believe me if I said we actually got all 7 types out here? Here are the 7 types of wait. Okay, here is the 7 types of plastic. Real quick, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we only had 1 for 7. Now, this entire video so far, I've been saying the 7 types of plastic. But personally, I would argue that there's actually an 8th type. We'll get into that later though. First, let's start with type 1, PET or PETE, polyethylene terephthalate. This type of plastic is tough and is often used to hold liquid. Some examples of this type I found on the beach are some water bottles and some soda bottles, but PET can also be things like rope, tote bags, and those PB&J containers you see at the store. If left completely abandoned, type 1 plastic would take 5 to 10 years to completely break down into microplastics. But listen, alright, PET was not named number 1 arbitrarily, alright? My boy Pete is the number 1 most recycled type of plastic in the world. Let's go, baby! It's also the number 1 most used type of plastic though, so 36% of PET is recycled here in the US, and when recycled correctly, we can turn it into a range of things from carpets and furniture to plushies and clothing, which technically is repurposing or upcycling, but cut me some slack. I'm trying to make this video make sense. Type 2, HDPE, high density polyethylene. HDPE is rough, but it can also be semi-flexible and it's very resistant to chemicals. Bottle caps, oddly enough, are type 2, while the actual bottle is type 1. Crates, milk jugs, and detergent bottles are also made from HDPE. And unfortunately, this stuff is made to last. It would take these bottle caps around 100 years to fully break down into microplastics. Thankfully, we're pretty good at recycling HDPE. In terms of the other types of plastic. 30 to 35% of HDPE gets recycled here in the US, but remember, just as a refresher, out of all of the plastic we make, only 5% gets recycled, and HDPE makes up 30 to 35% of this 5%. So, yeah. When recycled correctly, this type of plastic can be used to make playground equipment or fencing or plastic bottles and jugs. Type 3. PVC, polyvinyl chloride. PVC has long-term stability and can't be weathered easily. Some type 3s I found on the beach today are this credit card, which I'm sure someone's very upset about, and this pipe fragment. But PVC can also be things like garden hoses, rain gutters, or synthetic leather. This type of plastic would take the longest to break down into microplastics, with some sources saying it would never break down. PVC is like the bad boy of the group. It's the edgy one. I mean, it's known for being the most poisoned plastic because of the numerous toxins PVC will leak throughout its life cycle. So good thing we use PVC in our water piping, and children's toys, and food wrappers. Oh, you could see the bags under my eyes. At least they're recyclable. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, and recycling can be unnecessarily complex, but I want to share an epiphany that I had that I think may help. Just because something isn't recyclable in your area doesn't mean you can't find a way to recycle it. I can't stress this enough. Every city, town, county, they all have their own recycling centers and their own unique recycling processes. To better understand what you're able to recycle in your area specifically, check out howtorecycle.info. This is a great jumping off point that breaks down where you live and what you can recycle. If you ever encounter a situation where you find something that isn't recyclable in your area, it could feel a little bit challenging at first, but with a little creativity, this is arguably the most fun part of recycling. And the 3 R's of recycling are a great place to start to get ideas. The 5 R's of recycling. We have 7 R's of recycling now? What? Okay. Since when is there 11 R's? So a personal example of this idea is the toy box. I kept noticing that beach toys kept getting left behind in the sand, so I left this toy box on the beach to keep those toys off the shoreline and ultimately out of the ocean. These toy boxes even caught on, and now there's multiple on different beaches across my city. But the best example of this, in my opinion, is glass half full. As a group of friends shared a bottle of wine one night, they found themselves asking why their entire state didn't recycle glass. And this one question led them to build a grassroots glass recycling infrastructure that went on to be the biggest glass recycling facility in all of Louisiana. But today, glass half full is more than just recycling, as they've added restoration to their list of R's. They're accomplishing this by grinding down their recycled glass into sand and using it as shoreline restoration to aid in Louisiana's coastlines. And they do get one final R for just being rad. I love them so much. Please check them out if you haven't already. Type 4, LDPE, low density polyethylene. LDPE is soft and flexible, and it's able to achieve this sort of transparency. Again, personified. This is number 2. This is number 4. Number 2, number 4. 2, 4. You get it. A type 4 that I found on the beach today is this plastic bag. But 4s can also be bubble wrap, food containers, or garbage bags. There are type 4 plastics out there that will outlast entire civilizations. I wish I was joking. LDPE, like plastic bags, can take from 500 up to 1,000 years to fully break down into microplastics. That's if they're not mistaken for a jellyfish by a sea turtle and gobbled up. With only 6% of LDPE ultimately getting recycled, this has gotta be one of the most despicable types of plastic we've seen so far. Type 5, PP, polypropylene. And I really wish that word was easier to say because I would love to say that instead of. PP is hard but flexible with a waxy surface. I find number 5s so often on this beach, but today I mostly found straws and these coffee cups. It would take 20 to 30 years for these PPs to become micro, and for a plastic so common, it's one of the least recycled types. Only around 3% of PPs are recycled here in the US, and municipalities and recycling centers can take them and process them, but my favorite application of recycling is from artists. Like this plastic mosaic mushroom my friend Floppy made me. Type 6, PS, polystyrene.
You wanna fight?
Personally, this is my least favorite type of plastic. Styrofoam is polystyrene. The Nature Valley bar of plastics. You touch it, it breaks, it crumbles, it gets everywhere, it's all over the place. You've seen it. Polystyrene is super common, and you'd think this stuff would only take a soft breeze to break down, but in reality, it takes type 6 around 50 years to break into microplastics. A little bit of optimism for you though, we are managing to recycle 34% of polystyrene, so. Finally, type 7, other. Yeah, type 7 didn't get like a fun, scientific, hard to say name. It's literally just called other. And this is a catch-all type because some of the plastics in this type are made up of a combination of other types of plastic. Some type 7s are things like eyeglasses, but other type 7s are things like marine biodegradable plastic. Additionally, PLA type 7s can't be recycled, but they can be composted. Those are the official 7 types of plastic, but what about that 8th mystery type of plastic I mentioned earlier? Well, those of you who've been paying attention may have already caught on to what I believe is the 8th type of plastic. Out of all 7 types of plastic, there are 2 major things they all have in common: the way they're created and the way they break down. Type 8. Microplastics. Microplastics are any tiny microscopic pieces of plastic under 5 millimeters in diameter. Plastic doesn't decompose or just go away, it becomes this. We haven't even reached 100 years of commercial plastic use, yet we've already found type 8 plastics in the clouds, the food we eat, and even our bloodstreams. This so clearly showcases the drastic effect plastic has had on our planet, and we need large-scale plastic production legislation in order to fix this. So TLDR, these are the 7 types of plastic, accompanied by their respective names, their recyclability, the percent that gets recycled, and their decomposition timelines. Additionally, recycling in the US is very nuanced and specific to your area, so check out howtorecycle.info to better understand what your recycling center will accept. I've cited the sources I used to help me make this script in the description, and I've also linked Glass Half Full, so go check them out. Subscribe to help me fight plastic pollution, and I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.